Good afternoon, everybody. Lee's back at you with another day of Wall Street Journal. A little slight dissection of, I think I've got about 8 articles here, 7 or 8 articles today to go through. So thanks for joining me. Hope you enjoy. Hope you learned something from it. And hope what I really try to do is get you to think about different things. And I hope you don't need to agree with me, but I hope I get you thinking about different things and think deeper than the news and think, okay, here's the news. What does it mean? What's my observations? So I hope to do that. First of all, Verizon is going to try to buy a TracFone. So TracFone, by the way, is a $7 billion deal. And TracFone's a unit of the Mexico's America Movil Corporation. That's started by that Carlos Slim, billionaire from Mexico. And this is prepaid phones. So this is phones you go to a store and you get a code and you put on the phone and it prepays, a certain number of minutes, maybe some data's in there, and minutes and text, by the way, so a certain number of text. So it's prepaid up front. And when you run out, you stop using the phone. So 21 million customers TracFone has. A lot of them pay about $15 a month for a basic package. And some of the major names are called Straight Talk, Net10, SafeLink. There's a lot of different trade names that they use, and they've sold this under. Highly marketed, highly segregated by markets. Verizon, it's interesting, as a company, stayed out of this market. A lot of phone companies looked at it as a very unreliable stream of revenue because if you're on month to month, you can switch very quickly or get out and get into a regular phone contract. So Verizon didn't like that fluctuation of this market, but I think they've had a change of heart here, and obviously they don't have the revenue streams AT&T does with their movies and other things that they can pull revenue from. So maybe this is one they can. So Verizon has only had 4 million of these kinds of users. They've got a prepaid package too. And this is very common. When I go down to Mexico, every time you're in a line for any kind of a normal convenience store, there's somebody in there prepaying. Prepay in Mexico is huge. So they'll be prepaying their phone, prepaying utilities. They prepay a lot of stuff. So it's always odd to me because you see nothing in their hands. You say, what are they buying when they get up there, So what they're buying is credits, right, is what they're buying. So very popular. I bet you didn't know how popular it was in the U.S. I'm going to give you some stats that are very interesting. So the market in the U.S., Verizon had 4 million users. TracFone had 21 million. AT&T had 18 million. And T-Mobile had 20 million. These are all prepay packages. So 63 million users in the U.S. use a prepay phone. Did you believe the market was that big, the total market? That's a huge market for prepay. It seems like, the environment I live in and my friends, everybody's got a regular phone contract, but lots of prepay phones out there. So Verizon, by the way, of those 21 million, so I didn't tell you. So TracFone didn't have their own network in the U.S. So they just bought discounted packages off any carrier that they could get and sold these on a carrier. So you never know which carrier you're on. Typically you can find out, but a lot of times you don't. And so of this 21 million, 13 of them are already on Verizon right now. So my guess is you can bet they're going to try to move as much of the 21 million over to their own network. And that's probably a part of their business case, is that they can increase that margin when they're all on their own network and they're not discounting those fees to TracFone or other companies. So interesting. Next one, Oracle. I talked a little bit about them partnering with TikTok and the deal there about taking over TikTok. So sorry about that. I've got a message up there that didn't know I could do. Sorry about that. So I want to share a screen with you, show you a couple stats. So first of all, if you look at who owns cloud services, I'm talking a little bit about this. Cloud services is where they store all the computing power and all the storage. So a lot of the companies competing for this business from TikTok, Microsoft was obviously a big one, and Amazon Web Services, and then Oracle. And you can see Oracle's down here with about 3% of the market share, and so and then Microsoft's up here at 11%, and Amazon's at almost 13%. So Oracle's really down. They were late to the market on cloud services, trying to keep their other businesses going, and they're scrambling very quickly for this. So I'll stop this screen sharing, and I'm going to go try another one here now. Hopefully, nope. They're both labeled the same thing. So so this is, I wanted to point this out. This is the number of users that TikTok has by week. This is an amazing number here. So, if you look up here, over 50, 52, 53 million users per week. These are active TikTok users in the US. So, so if you look at this again from an Oracle standpoint, and I talked about this a few days ago, I predicted this, and I don't often predict things right, so I thought I would brag about this one, is that I predicted it correctly, because a lot of people said, why is Oracle in this business? Why are they going after TikTok? They could care less about this app. All these teenagers using it could care less. I know, I'm sure they won't say that, but this is all about cloud business. If they get 50, 60 million users on a cloud business, that's a huge, huge business that they've got. And I'd love to be a salesperson from Oracle and walk in any account trying to sell cloud services, and somebody asked me a question, can it scale? How big can it scale? And the easy answer is, well, how about 60 million users? And by the way, video users. So this, by the way, there's a comment on this. TikTok, those of you who don't know, is short videos, but video is very demanding on the cloud and very demanding on storage, much more so than text and like a Twitter application or so on. So they've got bragging rights, certainly going forward with if they close this deal. It's still being seen whether they can close it. So another observation, by the way, the political connections on this are disturbing. Hi, Dave Stone, glad to have you on board. So, Safra Catz, CEO of Oracle, and then Larry Ellison, which owns Oracle, the founder, he owns a lot of Oracle, but he's the founder. And then the company that's putting this all together, this Sequoia company, they've all got Trump connections, and they're all Republican donors. And so you look at that and say, well, it's very convenient that Trump says, this has got to go to a U.S. owner. And if I'm Microsoft, I'm smelling some cronyism here. But maybe not. Maybe it's just a coincidence, but I suspect it's not. So another story, Amazon's hiring big. They're now hiring 100,000 positions. 100,000 positions just opened up. Okay, and they expect to fill them in the next 2 months. They now have they'll have 700,000 total headcount. That makes them the second largest employer in the U.S. Care to guess who's the largest? Think. Walmart. Walmart's the largest employer in the U.S. right now. Now, somebody might say the government is, but you've got to combine all state, local, and governments to get to those kind of numbers. But right now, private corporations, certainly Walmart's the largest, and Amazon's right behind them. So I think a lot of them are warehouse positions. I think starting $15. There you go. Thanks for the answer, Walmart. So a lot of them are warehouse positions, $15 an hour starting, I think, and it'd be interesting to see if they can find in this job market, if they can find that many people for an entry-level position. That's got to be a huge job to hire 100,000 people in 2 months. That's huge. By the way, signing bonuses, maybe I've answered my own question. Sometimes I do that. $1,000 hiring bonus. So if you're out there looking for a job and there's 4 or 5 jobs at $15 an hour and somebody's giving you $1,000, that's a lot of money to somebody just starting out or wanting an entry-level position to just start out. So that may be the answer to that. So political fires. Trump was in California yesterday. I think a lot of you seen that. And of course, he was sitting down with the governor of California and going back and forth on the fires. And of course, Governor Newsom is talking about climate change, and Trump is saying no. It's mostly about forestry management. And by the way, to give Newsom some credits, he said, "Yeah, you can't take forestry management off the table. It's an issue, and we know it's an issue." So they're going back and forth. And of course, Biden has a statement here, and I just took the one thing out, but he called Trump a climate arsonist. And interesting enough, he picked on the suburbs, and I think he's after the suburban women vote, and many of us believe that. But he said that the suburbs are all going to be on fire if you elect Trump. And he called him a climate arsonist, to repeat myself there. So Biden came across strong on him, but he's got a message. He's going to straighten out the climate, get us back into the Paris Climate Accord, and spend trillions of dollars to fix the climate. And that's his approach. And whether you agree with that or not, that's his approach. Trump thinks something can be done on forestry management. So the experts all say, look, you got to thin out these dense forests. You've had this policy of putting out small fires for years and years. You've got this dense undergrowth. You've got trees that have fallen down. You've limited lumbering, and the lumber operations in California is virtually stopped. And so you limited that. And by the way, the experts say you got warmer temps, and the warmer temps are not helping. You got very hot conditions in California and Oregon right now that haven't helped. So it's worsened the fires situation. So, but the observation you've got is that I would say is, in a question maybe, is without forestry management changes and limiting people moving into the forest, right? There's this inner urban area they call that's you're not in the city anymore. You're moving out of the city. And by the way, the reason they're moving out of a lot of cities is a lot of regulations in the city on building. They've limited building in the West Coast in a lot of places. So the way you get away from that is move further away from the city where there's less controls. Get away from the politicians, the bureaucrats. So when they do that, they move into high-risk areas. And they'll do that in the flooding areas. They do that in the fire-prone areas. And that's what's happening. So, we have the same issue. If you're going to fix the climate, you're going to be working on that for 20, 25 years. Meanwhile, we've got an issue with forests that are burning right now and going to be burning if you don't do something different in managing those forests. So here's a case where, by the way, both sides will say the facts are true, but you can't get at the truth when you look at both sides. So one side will say climate change is a real problem, and they're right. It's a real problem. Heat in California in Arizona I live right now is a huge problem that's contributing to the fires. But it's not the truth, right? It's not the whole truth. And others will say it's all forestry management. That's it is forestry management issue. That is a truth. But somewhere we find the truth when you put all these facts together. I'm hoping you find that in my podcasting that I'll tell you both sides of the facts and then let you decide which way to go. Though there are times that I'll help you decide, I'm sure. So Biden spins. So Biden's proposal right now to fix, the U.S. is a $5.4 trillion over 10 years, and that's 2 times what Hillary had suggested 4 years ago in her run for the presidency. But it's less than the 30 trillion that Bernie Sanders had proposed. And remember, right now Trump has no proposal for a budget going forward the next 4 years. I think he should do that. I think. I've been very critical of Trump over his plans over the next 4 years, and his campaign has basically said more of the same, and I think it would behoove him to be more specific in some areas. He has some Supreme Court justices, but in most other areas he's left that alone. If Biden's spending was enacted, the federal spending would be 25% of all U.S. economic output. That's a huge number, huge number. So the other thing I thought was interesting, and I thought about this while all the COVID work is going on, says how is different people contending with COVID with getting an insurance company to pay for it? And by the way, getting federal help or state help or so on. And so Wall Street Journal did a really good rundown of all the different categories of insured people and uninsured that had and went after individual cases, personal cases that actually got the COVID and had that kind of insurance. So I'll run down them real quick. First of all, the uninsured, and this one insured person got the COVID. The CARES Act, and if you remember right, the CARES Act was part of that money was to go to uninsured people to cover. That covered basically everything. It appears like this guy went and got a chest x-ray at another hospital, and then he had some follow-up care. So he ended up with $876 bill. He's got no money. I think he's got a relative that's trying to do a GoFundMe to try to get help for him. But again, he was uninsured. You hear all this issue about insurance and the uninsured and how terrible off they are. In this case, if this person could have been a little bit more careful, everything would have been paid for, in my mind, looking at the numbers here. But in the end, they got a terrible case of COVID in the hospital and everything. He paid $876. Medicare, person on Medicare. So this is interesting. So there's 6 million U.S. people who don't carry supplemental. They carry Medicare without supplemental. So when you do that, for those of you who don't understand that, and a lot of the foreigners don't understand that either, is you must cover 20% of many charges when you don't purchase a supplemental insurance package. So there's 6 million people in the U.S. that don't that. So when they get COVID, they're going to have to cover that 20%. Now, this one person, I thought it was interesting because they showed her and her husband's income, $85,000 a year before COVID hit. They said they couldn't afford supplemental insurance. Now, don't quote me exact numbers, but supplemental insurance is somewhere around $120 a month. There's all sorts of policies you can buy. You probably buy some at $100, probably buy some at $160, but I think I pay around $120, $130 for my wife and I. So they chose not to buy that. They gambled, right? I mean, that's what you do with insurance. You gamble. And so their out-of-pocket expense because of that 20% not being covered was $4,000. So again, that's a common misbelief of Medicare that covers 100%. Everybody believes that these seniors are all covered, and they're not. In some serious hospitalizations, you can end up with significant expense. So another person was on Medicaid. They were 100% covered. and another person was on private insurance. By the way, this person was hospitalized for 52 days on dialysis and on the ventilator. The hospital bill was $836,000, and that person paid $602 in co-payments. Okay, so that gives you a pretty good wrapping, and I thought that generally, if you watch things and make sure you're covered correctly, you're 100% covered or real close. I mean, hospitalized for 52 days and you end up paying $600 with private insurance. Boy, you're in pretty good shape. Observation, regardless of all the noise you hear about the U.S. and the uninsured and the 20 million uninsured, U.S. citizens are pretty well covered in a catastrophe that involves, hospitalization in the medical field, regardless of which way you come. Now, in this case, the uninsured is unique because there was legislation to specifically cover that. And a lot of other things that would come up, the uninsured certainly would be much bigger problem. But the fact of the matter is, most of the uninsured people are never going to pay the hospital bill. And we all know that. And not casting disparaging remarks on those people. I'm just saying we all know how it's going to be. They're uninsured, sometimes for a good reason. So Joe's telling me his supplemental is $0 per month. Well, I'll follow up with him later on that. I have trouble believing that. So the last item here is I've titled Bloomberg Buys Florida. So Bloomberg has just announced that he's going to contribute $100 million to helping Biden win Florida. Huge swing state. That would be a big win. Maybe everything Biden needs to win the presidency. And he's going to give him $100 million. So some of you say, well, is that legal? So yes, it's legal if Bloomberg doesn't coordinate with the Biden campaign. So, right, that's a pretty big if. So he can't coordinate, can't send emails back and forth and say, we're going to do this, you do that. He has to have it completely separate. So everybody knows what's going to happen here. So what happens is, without this coordination, is Biden looks at that and his team, and they immediately take every dollar that they were going to spend in Florida. Okay, now let's say it's $100 million. I don't know if it was or not, but if it was $100 million, they're going to take it and they're going to move it to other critical areas. Like Arizona's the one that they want to get a Senate seat, or another state that they want Biden to win. That's Minnesota, for instance, is marginal right now. Nevada, that's marginal. So they're going to take that money out and spend it somewhere else. So is that coordination? It sure sounds like coordination to me. In my mind, if Biden didn't take the money out, that's not coordination. But if they take money out of Florida and spend it elsewhere, that's coordination without them sending the email. It's very obvious, and everybody knows what they're doing. So okay, that's my articles for today. Sure, glad having you on board today. Hope they were interesting. Hope they challenge your thinking process. And great hearing from you. Great hearing the comments. And have a great day. See you tomorrow. Cheers.